Mr. Baroud, what next now? Hosni Mubarak's sitting in the presidential palace, giving interviews to Christian Amanpour, it seems, but he must be looking at this situation now. What will he do next? If there is, as has been reported, pressure on him from the army, is that going to be what changes the equation?
There are many players in this game. The player with the upper hand so far has been the people, the collective, the Egyptian collective. Their ability to speak so resolutely and in one voice and so determinedly and decidedly so throughout the days, it is so very important and so very significant. On the other side, you see the other players, Mubarak, his elites, the business elites, the religious elites, and of course Washington and his Western allies. And they are abandoning him. They are disowning him one after the other. So I think what Al-Azhar, the latest news from Al-Azhar is significant in the sense that this legitimizing institution is now disowning Mubarak, if I heard the news correctly. Now, the challenge that remains is that the people needing to stay speaking in one voice and as a collective. Now they have changed strategy. Today was the day of, every day it has a different title. There was a Yawm al-Hasm, the deciding day. There's a day of departure, Jum'at al-Rahil, and that sort of thing. Now they are thinking in the long term. It's going to be a week of protest. I think it's a very important message. I think that Egyptian collective is now playing psychological warfare against Mubarak. No, you will not be able to intimidate us, and you will not be able to exhaust us, that we will eventually disperse. We are here for the long run. We are here for the long haul. We have nowhere else to go until you go. And I think that is so very significant. So I think the challenge is, Mubarak is stubborn, there is no question about it, but will his stubbornness alone be able to keep him in power, or will his former allies remove him out of power to preserve whatever little that they can preserve after this revolution?
Ms. Flounders, I mean, Washington has really been trying to play catch-up through this whole scenario. Today we've heard that the Congress was annoyed and angry that US intelligence hadn't warned Washington of this so they could be better prepared. It reminds me somewhat of the Iranian Revolution 32 years ago, but those comparisons aside, how much of an embarrassment is all of this for Washington as they try to kind of support Mubarak and kind of stand for democracy, kind of be against torture, but not come out too harsh against what the regime's doing there either?
Well, the arrogance of power, great power, is to always underestimate the power of the masses once they're in motion, the power of the people. And so, of course, there's no intelligence agency in the world that could predict an uprising like this. And yet, because there is such rage at being unable to stop it, it will create enormous tensions within the U.S. political establishment of blame as to who, as they did with Iran, against Carter in an earlier time, as to who lost Iran. Now it may be who lost Egypt, as if it was theirs to control and own. And that is what they assume, and when the people assert themselves, they take back their right to determine their own history, free of U.S. imperialist domination and control. And the longer this struggle goes on, actually, the more fundamentally revolutionary it becomes. The longer that the people are engaged and defending and challenging, they begin to ask very fundamental questions about the regime. So I think this whole process, it's enormously educational for everyone who's participating, and there is really nothing that Washington can do to stop it, but they will show their frustration and their anger at their own political leaders who couldn't stop it.
Mr. Hijazi, you made the fair point, I think, that really the people have led this movement and all the other players have played catch-up. What is it now, do you think, from speaking to so many people on the ground, that the people want? What will they be satisfied with? If Hosni Mubarak goes, will they compromise and wait a few months while Suleiman transfers until a presidential election? Do they want the whole regime gone? And once there's a new establishment in place, new leadership, what are those key issues? Are they bread and butter issues, or is foreign policy an issue on the agenda as well?
I think there are several issues that are consequences that will depend on how we solve the core issue. Now, the core issue is that what Mubarak and his supporters seem to, his party members and so on, what they seem to not quite grasp is that this is a revolution. This is not a license to initiate evolution on corrupt, dysfunctional DNA. This is not what the people want. Now, foreign policy issues, there are numerous, but you know, the will of the Egyptian people, their inherent respect for human rights and love for peace will, I think, shape the foreign policy that a future democratic state in Egypt will represent, and human rights are, you know, one of the core issues here. So in order to change the DNA and in order to complete this revolution, I think we need a complete extraction of those elements that are, you can argue, a part of the old American neocon project in the Middle East, but they will be dismantled because they haven't respected the human rights of their own people and their right to speak freely. The video, I think, the video is coming out now after the blackout of the internet and phones and communication in Egypt. Is just such solid evidence showing why, you know, how really evil and disrespecting to human rights these entities of Mubarak's party are, like the secret police, for example, running over people in the street without regard for their lives. So I think everything will come later.
Mr. Baroud, I mean, this is a 30-year regime. It's inset. It's deep rooted into everything that's going on in Egypt. Is it somewhat, are we somewhat talking superficially and are now just asking for Hosni Mubarak to go? Surely an uprooting of the system and replacing it with something new is going to take years.
Absolutely, and this is why Ali, what Ali was saying was correct regarding the need to extract and uproot that whole cancerous element in Egyptian society. But again, we have to be realistic here and to understand that the revolution in itself will not bring an end to all the ills and ailments that have afflicted Egyptian society for all those years. But the revolution is a process. This is the start. This is the starting point. And it's the most significant point by far. It is where the Egyptian people stand as one body, one soul, one heart, and they say Christians and Muslims of all their ideological and class even backgrounds, and say we want change, we want this whole system to be overhauled and uprooted even. Now the challenge is the motion that this is going to set a revolution in motion. It's going to be a permanent revolution, if you will, until the last symptoms of that regime are extracted. Okay. And I see that I can't see that happening if Amr Suleiman and his cronies remain in power and they manage that moment. That would be really the end of, or it would be a way to co-opt and to find a way around the revolution that's happening in Egypt. So the Egyptians not only are rebelling, but they have to also protect that revolution for the long run.
We'll have to leave it there because we're bang out of time. I'd like to thank all our guests, Ramzy Baroud there in Seattle, giving us his comments. Really good to see Sarah Flounders in New York. I hope you're well. And also in London, Ali Hijazi from United Egyptians too. That's a wrap for this edition of Your News Analysis. Do stay tuned for your latest from Egypt in just a moment.